Quiet on the set. Stand by, camera one. Roll camera.
Go ahead, action.
Hello, this is Kelly Nealon, and I want to welcome you to this edition of OnlyBelieve.tv News. Schwarzenegger flip-flops on marriage. After first saying he would support it, California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger now says he will oppose a state constitutional amendment upholding marriage as the union of one man and one woman. "I will always be there to fight against that," Schwarzenegger told about 200 people attending the annual convention of the Log Cabin Republicans, a homosexual group. Jeffrey Coors, executive director of the gay activist group Equality California, told the Associated Press that Schwarzenegger's opposition could help defeat the amendment or even prevent it from getting enough signatures to qualify for the ballot. "We were thrilled. We have been asking him to do this," Coors said. "The governor's support to defeat it is critical." The California Family Council has helped lead a coalition of national, state, and local pro-family organizations known as ProtectMarriage.com, which has gathered more than 1 million signatures to place the marriage initiative on the November election ballot. "We at the California Family Council are very disappointed and puzzled to learn that the governor would take a position contrary to his own actions, where he repeatedly vetoed same-sex marriage legislation," said Everett Rice, CFC's legislative director. Ron Prentice, chief executive officer of CFC, said, "Schwarzenegger's flip-flopping reveals his false regard for the will of the people of California. More than 61% of California's voters defined legal marriage as only between a man and a woman with the passage of Proposition 22 in 2000. Florida group relaunches campaign to protect marriage. The Florida for Marriage Coalition officially launched its YesToMarriage.org campaign April 17th to protect marriage in Florida. John Stemberger, president of the coalition, made the announcement at 10 press events throughout the state. "It was a series of powerful events, and we're very pleased with the outcome," he said. Florida for Marriage gathered nearly 650,000 signatures last year to allow Floridians to vote on the marriage amendment, Amendment 2, in November. If it passes, it will define marriage as the union of one man and one woman. The homosexual activist group Florida Red and Blue launched an attack last week against the amendment, claiming it will hurt senior citizens by denying them Social Security benefits. Stemberger said FRB is trying to deceive Florida's senior citizens with fraudulent information, but in reality, there is no legal connection between Florida constitutional law and federal Social Security statutes. "Shame on Red and Blue for using this raw scare tactic targeting Florida seniors," he said. "The reality is that a yes vote on Amendment 2 will do one thing and one thing alone. It defines marriage as the union of a man and a woman as the best arrangement for protecting children. It does not prohibit the government from extending benefits to any persons." Hundreds of Florida's senior citizens joined Stemberger at today's events to tell Floridians that senior citizens do support marriage. At the Naples event, more than 100 people, mostly seniors, recommitted their wedding vows and shared a giant wedding cake. If our opponents want to debate the public policy merits of whether or not homosexual marriage is in the best interest of children and families and the common good of society, then we say, "Game on, and bring it on," Stemberger said. "That's the debate we want to have, but we're not going to allow our opponents to scare our most precious and vulnerable citizens." Family breakdown costs taxpayers. The breakdown of the family isn't just costly to children. Divorce and unwed parenting costs U.S. taxpayers at least $112 billion annually, according to a study released April 15th. This study documents for the first time that divorce and unwed childbearing, besides being bad for children, are also costing taxpayers a ton of money, said David Blankenhorn, president of the Institute for American Values, which is associated with the study. The national, state, and local costs, which add up to more than $1 trillion over the last decade, are caused in part by high poverty rates of single, female-headed households, which led to higher spending on welfare, criminal justice, and education programs. Blankenhorst said that reducing family fragmentation rates by just 1% would save taxpayers $1.1 billion. He joined the Georgia Family Council, Institute for Marriage and Public Policy, and Families Northwest in calling for state and federal groups to work to strengthen marriage. This report now provides the basis for a national consensus that strengthening marriage is a legitimate policy concern, Blankenhorst said. Texas, for example, recently spent $15 million over 2 years for marriage education and other programs to increase marriage stability. If the program succeeds in increasing stable families by just 0.3%, it will save Texas taxpayers nearly $9 million per year. Randy Hicks, president of the Georgia Family Council, said the numbers represent real people and real suffering. Both economic and human costs make family fragmentation a legitimate public concern, he said. And while we'll never eliminate divorce and unwed childbearing entirely, we can certainly be doing more to help marriages and families succeed. Unique law protects pregnant women. Anyone in Idaho who forces a pregnant woman to have an abortion could be sentenced to 5 years in prison under a law signed April 11th. And if anyone is convicted of making a threat or taking part in a conspiracy to force an abortion, they could get 6 months in jail. Georgette Forney, founder of the pro-life Silent No More awareness campaign, said she hopes other lawmakers to take notice. All of the presidential candidates are talking about the fact that abortion isn't a good thing, and we should have fewer of them, she said. This is where we can find common ground. Doug Barth with Cornerstone Institute of Idaho agreed. This is a very strong pro-life victory in Idaho, and also is a strong pro-life victory nationwide because of its impact, Barth said. This is about women, and protecting them from domestic abuse. Planned Parenthood of Ohio expressed opposition to the new law on its website. Prayer warriors gather for National Day of Prayer. Millions of Americans will gather at tens of thousands of prayer events on May 1st, the 57th Annual National Day of Prayer. They will gather at churches, parks, and on courthouse steps to pray for our nation, leaders, media, military, schools, churches, businesses, and families. Some will even gather on airplanes. In the first event of its kind, planes with prayer warriors aboard are scheduled to fly over all 50 state capitals. They will take off at noon local time. Kenny Wortman is a founding member of Prayer Flight, an Ohio group that organizes prayer-based flights. Ahead of the National Day of Prayer, the group contacted airports near each state's capital. All we ask for is a plane and a pilot and some prayer warriors, Wortman said. Most of the people are just so excited. They don't know what to do. So far, he has volunteers in 42 states. The National Day of Prayer was created in 1952 by a joint resolution of Congress and signed into law by President Harry S. Truman. The theme for this year is prayer, America's strength and shield, and is based on Psalms 28:7. The Lord is my strength and shield. My heart trusts in him, and I am helped. The national observance runs from noon to 3 p.m. Eastern Time on May 1st in Washington, D.C., and will be broadcast live on God TV, Channel 365 on DirecTV, and over the Internet.
Let's start it. They will be joined, Internet. Dr. Dobson.
Dr. and Mrs. Dobson will be among the presenters in Washington. They will be joined by Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, Dr. Ravi Zacharias, and others. Mrs. Dobson is chairman of the National Day of Prayer Task Force. Zacharias is this year's honorary chairman. We're living in very serious and uncertain times, Mrs. Dobson said. Without God, we will never be able to navigate the turbulent waters that we're going through. As long as God is on his throne, there is always hope. The task force also has launched the Prayer for Election Day campaign to remind people of faith to pray for those in leadership. The scripture for this episode, Proverbs 8:12. I, wisdom, dwell with prudence, and find out knowledge of witty inventions. The fear of the Lord is to hate evil, pride and arrogancy, and the evil way, and the perverse mouth do I hate.
That's a wrap.